All right, I love podcasts. It's honestly probably when I'm listening to Spotify, 90%, 80% of the time I'm listening to a podcast. And I actually have two of my own. If you listen to Greels Reels or the Yes By podcast, hey, thank you so much. But this whole video is actually talking about the latest guest that we had on the Yes By podcast. Her Honor, the Honourable Judy Foote, the Lieutenant Governor of Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, I interviewed her more or less for that podcast, but there's a little bit of a background story. I used to work for her for like a couple months in the summer after my first year at the University of Ottawa. I was working as like an events coordinator, I guess, and a freelance reporter. So when we had this Canada 150 celebration, she was there, she was speaking. I took a couple photos of her for the paper, and then all of a sudden I got a call from her office the next couple of days. Personally, I kind of thought, I was like, oh no, am I in trouble? Like, did she not like the photos? But turns out she just kind of seen me and was like, oh, he would be a good replacement for this job that we have coming up. So yeah, I worked for her for the couple months there in the summer. Honestly, I learned so much. It's one of the jobs that like I think I've taken the most from, even though it was just like a short little stint to kind of close out that particular season. And yeah, it was so much fun. So, you know, when I created the Yes By podcast, I was like, honestly, like, there is nobody better to interview than Judy Foote. So that's basically what we did. So this video is actually how I ended up getting the Lieutenant Governor of Newfoundland and Labrador on the podcast. So it first started with a Facebook reach out, like her Facebook page just sent a message kind of explaining what it was and how, like, also this is another video for my program at Ryerson. And so just kind of painting that whole concept about the comparison with, you know, the podcast and like the branch of like my education with Ryerson, because we also had like some other ideas to maybe do a video in person, but with, you know, COVID-19 on the roster at the time that we were really talking about this, because but mind you, the first initial reach out was in December of 2020. So December to March, so December, January, February, March, like it was about 4 months of like, you know, back and forth before we could, you know, schedule a time and work everything out. And that's typically, you know, how it goes with people who have, you know, very busy schedules. Now, she has a fantastic team. I enjoyed every second of emailing back and forth with Joshua. He was super helpful. We sent more or less a list of pre-interview questions, and he took a look and, you know, gave some suggestions, and we reworked some of the questions and came up with what I thought was a really good list that would essentially kind of get us through that 60-minute window. Now, mind you, when I first started planning and readjusting to go down this podcast route and potentially have her on as a guest, I was like, there's no way I can, you know, I always like to have at least an hour, more or less, an hour conversation for the podcast. So I was like, there's no way that I'm going to get her for the 60 to 90 minute mark interval that I kind of need. And I was so grateful and absolutely shocked that her and her team came back and said, yeah, no, we can go for the 60 minutes depending on like the length of the conversation, but just a heads up, no more than 90 minutes, which I was like, wow. Like, in comparison, there's been sometimes when like you reach out to like organizations or teams and stuff like that, and they're like, yeah, we're all for it, but we have to like limit and cap this off at like 20 minutes. We don't like seeing things go over that like 20-minute mark. So the fact that I was getting 60 minutes to an hour and a half, like, mind-blowing. Normally I am sending a little bit of behind the scenes and stuff like that and filming through it the whole process, but this one I just really wanted to focus on the guest and the interview. So I really got to work once I got the questions all down, doing a lot of research and things of that nature. Then for the most part, it was just kind of like, okay, let's set up the Zoom call, here's the meeting. And that was basically it up until the day of shooting. Once the day of shooting hit, more or less, I hopped on with her team in the morning, and we set up the Zoom call and just kind of tested the connections, and that was around like 9 a.m., 10-ish. Actually, it might have been 11 a.m. And it was just quick back and forth like, hey, this is, all right, this is working. Our external mics are working. Everything's good to go. See you guys in a couple hours. If you haven't listened to the podcast yet, I really do recommend it. I think it's a great listen. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm the host and I produce that show, but it was so much fun. I'm gonna put just like a little sneak peek in here for you now. about 15-30 seconds, and I'm also going to put a card up for you to go check it out on YouTube if you just you're not a big Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts kind of person. So that way, if you just listen on YouTube for a little bit, here's the card. It's over on the SBY Podcast channel, but here's 15-20 second sneak peek. The Honourable Judy Foote, the 14th Lieutenant Governor of Newfoundland and Labrador. Welcome to the SBY Podcast. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation to be with you.
It's been a minute since we last saw you. Obviously, I was a summer student for you for one summer. I learned lots, and it's exciting to kind of see how things have changed very much for myself and you over the course of that little span there.
Well, it's always nice when you can come back together after having a good relationship and a good working relationship. It was really a pleasure for me to have you with us as a summer student.
Now, I'm going to provide you with 3 points that I think were really, really important. That kind of came from the stem of the topic of the conversation. Number one is that anywhere where we're making decisions in life, society, especially on these like boardrooms and things like that, the more diverse these boardrooms are, and the more opinions and different people we can get on these, the better. Number two, if you're trying to do the right thing, typically things will work out. And then number three, at the end of the day, do what's best for you. That was kind of like my 3 big themes that I kind of took from this podcast, and even just what I think you should just try to implement and think about throughout the course of your everyday activities and when you're going about your day. Now again, I just want to show my gratefulness and say a big thank you to Her Honor, the Honourable Judy Foote, and her whole team for helping set this up and giving the time and everything like that. A big thank you to my program, Ryerson, for just honestly supporting these endeavors. My advisor was honestly super awesome, shared it out with a couple program heads and stuff like that, and we chatted a little bit more about it, and I've really appreciated the feedback from them because I think it's going to make me a lot more talented at doing a lot of these things in my hosting capabilities. And also thank you to you for watching. If you haven't gone and checked out that podcast episode yet, I really do recommend you just give it a listen. It's about 1 hour and 7 minutes total. Not too long compared to some of the other ones on there, right? So your hour commute, boom, that's the perfect listen for it. But of course, hey, I have a new video coming up on this channel soon enough with my top podcast listens. So it's actually I'm not even going to mention the ones that I particularly do. I'm just going to mention more or less the ones that I listen to most frequently. So if that's something that interests you, and then other producer kind of vlog style content, Newfoundland content, anything like that, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, comment some suggestions. Let me know actually if you listen to the interview with Her Honor. I would love to hear your feedback and things like that. So by all means, put that in the comments, and in the meantime, stay best kind.